Our opening words this morning are by Patricia Sheldon. Here is where we gather in the presence of the sacred. Here is where we gather to experience the holy. Here is where, together, we face the unanswerable questions and acknowledge that not knowing is as sublime as it is frustrating. Here is where we unite in the midst of life and all the glories and suffering it can hold, knowing both are ever present. Here is where we ask, think, risk, discuss, ponder, and offer what might not be welcomed or even acceptable somewhere else. Here is where, if we follow it, we are deeply moved. Here is where we encounter each other in deep and powerful ways that surprise us, yet without which we would not survive. Here we gather for worship, to experience something happen, perhaps something different for each of us, according to our beliefs, something unnamed, uncategorized, and unusual, yet absolutely necessary. Here we are so gathered, our minds, our hearts, and our souls, and so our worship begins. And I would like to invite you to enjoy our special music this morning by Mowers.
Have you spent a lifetime looking to find a miracle or wonder that could change your mind? You ain't found no reason yet to believe, but maybe hope's got something yet left up her sleeve. Something beautiful, something natural, ordinary magic. Amazing that we have this chance to be here, to let our love vanish fear, and let our days overfill with ordinary magic. Have you felt the sunshine on your face? Have you heard the bird's version of Amazing Grace? Have you stood up on a mountain and tried to number the stars? Did you know that perfection is who you truly are? You're always magical, always beautiful, ordinary magic. It's amazing that we have this chance to be here, to let our love banish fear, to let our days overfill with ordinary magic. Like wind chimes, a child's song, the whisper of wind in the leaves, the moonlight, the wide open arms of a sycamore tree. That's just ordinary magic. It's amazing that we have this chance to be here, a chance to let our love disappear the fear, and let our days overfill with ordinary magic, ordinary magic.
Good morning. My name is Linda Mowers. I'm your worship leader, and I welcome each of you to our worship service. Today is a special day when we will shake things up a bit with a welcome ceremony for our new Director of Religious Education, Jenn Jones. Yes. And today's sermon will also be somewhat different. It will be a message to all of the members and churches in the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations by our president, the Reverend Susan Frederick-Gray, at our recent General Assembly in Portland, Oregon. It's a really great message, and I'm so glad we can share it with you today. Excuse me. Water, sorry. So, if you're a visitor today, and this is going to plague me this morning, I'm afraid, we welcome you as our guest, and we encourage you to stop by the welcome table where you will be greeted and invited to help yourself to information about our church and our denomination. We hope that you will fill out a guest card and a name tag so we can all greet you by name during the fellowship time. We offer regularly scheduled Learn About BBUC classes, and if you're interested in attending those or becoming a member, or if you have any questions about our church, you can find folks with a sticker on their name tag that says, "New, ask me," and they will be glad to assist you. Get to know us here, and we hope that you will find that our beloved community is home for you. We invite everyone to join us after the service today for fellowship, coffee, and refreshments, which during our COVID protocols we're hosting on the side porch at the conclusion of the service. You can follow the walkways down the front or the back of the building here, and also you can just go right down the hallway in the door that goes back to the classrooms and find yourself directly on the porch. It's a great time to meet new friends or catch up with old ones, to share stories or discuss the service. During this time of COVID, our board continues to monitor and set the safety policies that we practice to protect the most vulnerable among us. While cases are still at a high level here in Duval and Clay counties, we continue to practice masking during the service and while in the sanctuary afterwards. If you choose to go to our fellowship time out on the porch, masks are optional there. As conditions improve, we'll bring our fellowship and refreshment location back inside to the kitchen pass-through windows in here. And maybe things will get back to the way they used to be, but we'll take it as it comes. So now I'd like to invite you all to turn to our congregational covenant that's in the order of service. It is right under the mission statement on the inside page. And I ask you to join me as we recite our congregational covenant. But before we do, we practice theological hospitality and welcome all people of goodwill into the life of our congregation. But since we don't have a creed or dogma that holds us together as a community, covenant holds us together. And that's the promise that we make to one another about who we will be as a faith community and how we'll be in relationship with one another as we practice the values that we express in our principles and our wisdom sources. Our covenant is in this order of service. We repeat it every Sunday. So I invite you to just remain seated and join me in speaking the words in unison. We covenant to engage one another with honesty, kindness, and respect, to value diversity, seek understanding of our differences, and practice gracious accountability with care, love, and empathy. We make these promises to those who are here and those yet to come, so that we may be a safe, welcoming, and beloved community of acceptance, learning, and transformation. Thank you so much. And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join me to sing the call to worship. The words are in your order of service. Now I'd like to invite Claudia Marshall to come forward and light the chalice. Our chalice lighting words today are by UU religious educator Betsy Darr. May the light of this chalice give light and warmth to our community when we are joyful and when we despair. And may we feel the warmth spread from our circle to wider and wider circles until all know they belong to the one circle of life. Thank you, Claudia. And now I will invite you again to rise in body or spirit and join us in our opening hymn, number 145 in the gray hymnals. Give you a moment to find them. And we're going to sing all 4 verses of As Tranquil Streams. So I'd like to begin our ceremony of welcome this morning by inviting Chuck Smithers, our congregation's president, to come forward, along with Jenn Jones, our new director of Lifespan Religious Education. We appreciate the board's leadership of our community and ask that Chuck, on behalf of our board of directors, lead us in welcoming Jenn to our community and in renewing our congregation's commitment to the mission of Lifespan Religious Education in our church. So I invite all of you to turn to the insert that's in your order of service today. There's going to be some readings that you'll need that will be given in response by various members of the congregation during the ceremony. Chuck, pulpit's yours.
Thank you. It's a little off script here, but I can't tell you how excited I am today by the start of a whole new adventure for our congregation and for our community, and we're just ecstatic to have you here with us. Jenn, we welcome you into our community with joy and love. We commit ourselves anew to the mission of Lifespan Religious Education in our church. We will support you in your ministry with the children, youth, and adults in service to our Unitarian Universalist faith. I invite Amanda Thang, co-chairman of the Lifespan Religious Education Committee, to come forward at this time to celebrate your leadership and to ask you to affirm your commitment to the mission of Lifespan Religious Education at BBUC. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. Jenn, on behalf of my co-chair, Mary Hamilton, and myself, and all of the members of our Lifespan Religious Education Committee, we honor and welcome you into our community. We will work with you to create a safe and welcoming environment for all who come here and to help them to develop a spiritual life, participate in meaningful social action, understand our Unitarian Universalist principles, and respect the diversity of beliefs within our own congregation and the larger world community. I invite all of those in our congregation who serve on the Lifespan Religious Education Committee, who are LRE teachers and volunteers, including those who lead our whole lives sexuality education and journey circles, to rise in body or spirit. Will you promise to share the work not only with our Director of Lifespan Religious Education, but to call on the members of this congregation to help and support you in carrying this light in the coming years? If so, please say with me, we will. We will. The time you spend with our children, youth, and adults is one of the vital ministries of this church. It is a gift to them and to all of us. Thank you for all that you do. Today, we ask you to affirm your commitment to the mission of Lifespan Religious Education at this church with the reciting of these words, which are in your order of service insert. Jenn, we honor and welcome you into our community. We value your experience and support and will work with you to inspire children, youth, and adults in our community to explore, learn, and grow as they move along in their religious journey. Recognizing the challenges and joys of teaching in our congregation, will you care for our children, youth, and adults, and will you love them? Will you bring your enthusiasm, talents, and energy to this task? And when things get tough, will you communicate lovingly with one another and our Director of Lifespan Religious Education about your boundaries and limitations as you carry this light in the coming years? If so, say, we will. We will. You may be seated. Children and youth, you are the light of religious education at this church. Will you bring your open mind, your loving heart, and your helping hands to our church each Sunday? Will you work hard to learn with your friends and the adults who choose to spend their time with you? Will you promise to let your light shine? If so, please rise in body or spirit and say, we will. We will. You may be seated. Parents, please rise in body or spirit. You are the primary religious educators of your children, and you also trust this community with their big questions and worthy dreams. And so we ask you to affirm your commitment to the mission of religious education at this church with the reciting of these words, which are in your order of service insert. Jenn, we welcome you and recognize your commitment to our children and youth. We will get to know you and support you, the religious education committees, and our teachers in this work. Parents, will you help your child come to church regularly and participate fully? Will you register them in our religious education program? Will you make an effort to show up both on Sunday mornings and for the other events that help us build our beloved community? If so, please say with me, we will. We will. You may be seated. It takes our whole community to build the world we dream about, and it takes a UU village to raise a UU child. This is what it means to be a spiritual community. I invite the congregation to rise in body or in spirit and join us in welcoming Jenn to our community and renewing our commitment to the mission of Lifespan Religious Education at our church with the reciting of these words, which are in your order of service insert. Jenn, we welcome you and recognize your commitment to Lifespan Religious Education at our church. We value your insight, experience, and passion for the work that you do. Remembering that this is a shared ministry, Will you promise to journey with our new Director of Lifespan Religious Education and with each other in the spirit of mutual love, and to recognize and respect one another's limitations, humanity, and boundaries as you work together in this shared ministry? Will you nurture one another along your spiritual journeys, bringing the light each time you gather and work together to build this loving community? If so, please say with me, we will. We will. Please be seated.
Now we turn our focus to you, more so. Jenn, will you promise to bear and safeguard this light and work together with the congregation to help us dwell together in peace, seek knowledge and freedom, and serve mankind in fellowship?
I will. I'm honored to bring my commitment and passion to serve you as Director of Lifespan Religious Education and be entrusted with shaping the religious, spiritual, and ethical growth of your community. I promise that all I do here, I will always come from a place of love, respect, and to walk with you in the spirit of mutual love so vital to our life together at the Buckman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church.
So finally, in addition to the efforts of our board, we'd like to recognize the good work of our Director of Lifespan Religious Education search team. Would you please stand when I call your name? Henry Singh, Chair; Heather Chappell; Tara Crisp; Alyssa Halliday; Joni Maskell; Aaron Rogers; Amanda Singh, and Marilyn Smart. I think Marilyn's away today. She's not here. So we appreciate your commitment to lifespan religious education and your excellent collaboration and work in bringing our new DLRE, Jenn Jones, to our congregation. May we all be bearers of the light of our beloved faith as we continue our journey together. Thank you so very much. Now I'd invite you to pull out your gray hymnal and turn to hymn number 391. This will be our responsive hymn to the joys and concerns, voice still and small. And please remain seated while we sing this. I was privileged to attend General Assembly, or what we call GA, this year to serve as a delegate for our church, along with Claudia Marshall and Liz Baldwin. It was my 6th General Assembly as a BBUC member and my first virtual assembly. It was a bit different from attending in person, but the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, or what we call the UUA, we love acronyms here, They did a fabulous job with this, and their first fully multi-platform programming. So it was an experiment that really worked well this year. Claudia, Liz, and I are planning an upcoming event where we will be sharing the details of this past General Assembly with you, the elections, the important business resolutions, and the actions of immediate witness that were passed, which I hope we can explore here in our congregation. We'll tell you about the workshops we attended and the various resources available through the UUA and what it means to be a delegate. Perhaps some of you would be interested in serving as a delegate next year or in the years to come. But for today, we're going to share with you our sermon, the message that was delivered by our UUA president, the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick-Gray, entitled, "We Were Made for This Moment." I invite you to join me in listening.
Hello, everyone. Oh, my goodness. It is wonderful to see your beautiful faces and to feel the spirit of folks gathered in the room and around our association. I got to confess something. I got to confess something. I thought there was going to be lively music, and I wasn't done dancing from last night. I'm grateful for those of you who came and danced with me, because dancing is a part of my spiritual practice. It gives me joy. And we need joy. So, yeah, that's right. I want to start by just inviting joy to be present to you. Maybe just call to mind something that's already happened at this GA that brought you joy. Maybe it was a powerful speaker, a beautiful image, seeing a friend online and chatting with them, seeing someone in the room and embracing them. For in this world of tumult and pain, the world needs our joy. Joy is life-saving, and alongside our faith, our courage, our truth-telling, our moral witness, and our good old UU earnestness, oh, I see you out there with your earnestness, we must remember that there is something liberating and powerful in joy. Joy feels like love, and it moves like freedom. We need joy like we need oxygen. It reminds us what we are struggling for. And what a moment we are in. We are, and you have heard me say this before, we are in a liminal time between what has been and what is not yet. This is my penultimate President's Report to the General Assembly, my next to last one. I made a longer report available online that shares more of the details of all the good work of the UUA, but in this brief time, it feels more important to speak to the texture of our collective and interdependent lives. We are in the churn of change. Systems and practices that we've relied on are breaking down and shifting, while what is needed is being imagined but not yet here. In times of change and loss and uncertainty, there is a risk that fear will dominate and cause us to cling to the status quo and systems that no longer serve us just for a feeling of the certainty they give and the fear of moving into the liminal more fully. But let us remember that we are not a people of fear. We are a people of faith. We are a religious people of imagination and possibility. We are a living tradition. We know that Revelation is not sealed. We are a tradition that, in the words of the hymn Tranquil Streams, which was written for the merger 61 years ago that created the Unitarian Universalist Association, a faith that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love and proclaim a truth that makes us free. That was our charge at merger 61 years ago. This is some powerful magic in our tradition, rooted in love, committed to prophetic ministry, and which welcomes the future, not with fear, but as the breaking of a new day where we all have possibility and power to create that new day. We need to remember this spirit, this power, this magic, because in liminal times, questions arise. How will we meet this moment? Who will we be? The world we knew is passing. All things grow strange. These words, written by Unitarian Universalist minister A. Powell Davies, who served the All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C. in the 1940s and 50s. That, too, was an in-between time, with the world experiencing the collective trauma and inhumanity of the Holocaust and the U.S.'s use of atomic weapons. There were also powerful movements for liberation and civil rights that would gain ground over the next decades. For that time, A. Powell Davies wrote, "The world we knew is passing. All things grow strange. For us, there is no haven or refuge. For us, there is wilderness, wild and trackless, where we shall build a road and sing a song, our gift to those who follow us along the road we build, singing our song." These words have echoed in my heart as I've breathed through our own days, witnessing the crumbling, the failures in the midst of a global pandemic, and an endemic crisis of violence, racism, poverty, climate change, and rising authoritarianism. These fissures reflect a society and a global community of colonization that has put profit and power over people's lives, over the resources of the earth. And I could list all the egregious rolling back of fundamental rights happening now, all the evidence of how systems are doubling down, clinging to greed, exploitation, and a growing police state. But you know these realities. You see them every day. And I know that not everyone experiences these realities the same way. I know some of you know them far too well. Instead of listing all of those, I want to ask, given this context, who will we be? And more importantly, who are we called to be? From the earliest days of my presidency, I have said two things are clear. Number one, this is no time for a casual faith. And number two, this is no time to go it alone. These words have only become more apparent and urgent. And everywhere I see you, I see Unitarian Universalists living into these commitments. For here, before me, virtually and in person, I witnessed leaders who responded so quickly to the pandemic that they literally saved lives. Leaders who continue to center the most vulnerable in their decisions, embodying inclusion and mutual care. Religious professionals who innovated and pivoted and pivoted and pivoted again to respond to the ever-changing reality of the pandemic, of the ongoing pandemic. And congregational leaders who used their buildings during the pandemic to save lives, who organized food banks, sheltered people, offered hospitality, sanctuary, and medical support to freedom fighters in the streets. Leaders from the over 215 congregations and counting that have passed the 8th principle, a grassroots movement among you all to endorse our shared commitment to beloved community and anti-racism as a part of our core principles. Veterans, I see veterans of UU the Vote 2020 who built relationship with frontline defenders of democracy and contacted over 3 million voters. We did that. You did that. And leaders and volunteers in the room right now and online who are going to do it again in UU the Vote 2022. We are going all in for voting rights, all in to defend Black lives, defend trans kids, defend the right to abortion, to demand climate action, and to protect our kids, our communities, and our educators from the censorship of the anti-critical race theory movement and the politicians who refuse to take action on gun regulation. Here before me and online, I witness you. I witness a UUA, all of us. And for our work at the UUA staff, wave your hands, UUA staff. I love you. I'm so grateful to get to work with you each and every day. A UUA that has been intentional in our institutional change work and has cultivated the most diverse staff at the UUA, with an executive leadership team that is over 60% people of color, and a senior management team that is 40% people of color, and an overall UUA staff that is 32% people of color. A UUA that has been able to respond effectively to both the pandemic and the threats to democracy because of our diversity and because of our commitment to center those most directly impacted by systemic injustice. UU values are shaping the wider culture through Beacon Press, which is publishing the authors needed in these cultural conversations and the voices needed to understand the histories of how we got here. Congregations, you all, congregations that are mobilized to help women obtain abortions. That's right, providing financial resources, spiritual care, and accompaniment. Congregations, ministers, and religious educators supporting and protecting trans kids in their communities and their families, knowing unequivocally that trans lives are sacred, precious, and loved. Here we are, people who have stretched and stretched and stretched and provided ministry and leadership through the most heart-wrenching and difficult times. And still we show up again and again. I love this faith. Love, bless us in this faith. And I know this hasn't been the whole story. I know so many have been broken and hurt in deep ways. I have been broken in deep ways. So many of us are tired and unsure if we can keep going. Like so many helping professionals, like our nurses and our teachers, Ministers and religious professionals are leaving the work, taking prolonged or extended time off because it has been all too much. At the UUA, we recognize a shortage, particularly for interim ministers, and we are doing our best to support and equip our congregations through this time. But there are larger dynamics at play that we all, including you all as congregational leaders, have to wrestle with. We have to care for our staff as we together care for our mission. We need communities that can be vital sources of dynamic, life-giving ministry. And we need to learn our way into new patterns that meet this moment. For we are in a time of dramatic shift. And I don't have all the answers. And it's not easy. I'm not here to tell you that. But we have to be in the work. It's also true that there is conflict and division in our society. Much of it related to the fact that we are becoming an increasingly diverse and multiracial country. Yes, amen. Not to the conflict, though. That's rooted in racism. When there is conflict in society, we often experience it in our congregations. There's nothing new about that. It's part of being a tradition that's not rooted in the past, but in the here and now. One of the things I am most proud of as your president is our anti-racism work. It is powerful, beautiful, and liberating. It is a part of the joy that gives me life. And while we recognize that culture change is difficult and uncomfortable, it is how we grow spiritually as human beings. This work is the deepest expression of our values, and we have a generational opportunity to be the kind of just and anti-oppressive faith community that we imagine and that we talk about. And there are those who oppose. There are those who oppose our focus on anti-racism work and dismantling white supremacy culture within and beyond our religious community. This is not new. Historically, this work has always been met with resistance. As much as we claim the history of abolitionists and anti-racists, it isn't the whole story. Yes, we are the tradition of U.S. Senator Charles Sumner, a fierce and dedicated anti-racist who was beaten viciously on the floor of Congress for daring to name explicitly the depraved abuse of his slave-owning colleagues. But we are also the tradition of pro-slavery Senator John C. Calhoun. Yes, we are the tradition of Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, an African-American poet, abolitionist, and suffragette. And we were the faith community of U.S. President Millard Fillmore, who signed the Fugitive Slave Act. We are the faith of Wastewill and Martha Sharp, who resisted the Nazis and provided safe passage for refugees. And we were the tradition of Charles William Eliot, president of Harvard, who, among other Unitarians, were supporters and funders of the eugenics movement. We are the faith of James Reeb and Viola Luzo, who we honor as martyrs in the civil rights movement. And we were also a General Assembly who in 1963 defeated a bylaw change that would have required UU congregations to admit people to membership regardless of race, color, or national origin. No, we defeated it in 1963. We defeated it. Said it was a violation of congregational polity. We struggle with our understanding of freedom. Somehow, freedom to segregate was more important than the freedom of Black people, Black Americans, to come into any one of our congregations and be welcomed, and to say that we believe that as a practice for our whole faith. Yes, this is who we are. This is who we've been. I mean, it's all here. This history tells the story of Unitarian Universalists willing to risk their lives for a future of justice, equity, and freedom for all, and it tells the history of UUs who resisted change and defended and protected the status quo in moments when the times called for courage and boldness. The facts of this complicated history are important to know and to grapple with as uncomfortable truths. And the arc of where we have come honors the courage of those who came before. The stories from this history, particularly the ones we tell again and again, reflect the paths that Luso and Reeb and Harper and Sumner built. They reflect the songs they sang that we have chosen to keep following. I believe that something has shifted in us. It's been building for some time. It is evident in the resolution toward an anti-racist UUA passed 25 years ago at the 1997 General Assembly, which resulted in the creation of the Journey Towards Wholeness Transformation Committee. And while there was lots of resistance in response to that resolution, the embrace of this work has only continued to grow. It was apparent in 2019, just a few years ago, when a survey of the General Assembly led by the Commission on Institutional Change found that nearly 91% of respondents ranked anti-racism work as of primary importance, with nearly 60% ranking it as the highest priority. Clap for that. And we witnessed it again last year when our General Assembly overwhelmingly adopted the Statement of Conscience, undoing systemic white supremacy. There has emerged and grown over these last 25 years a powerful consensus across our movement for the centrality of this work. We have built the grassroots momentum to sustain our anti-racism work in an ongoing way, perhaps for the first time. Now, this doesn't mean that the work is easy or that there's only one way to do it. Dismantling systemic racism and white supremacy is long-haul work that requires an ability to embody a learning community way of being, a both-and approach that can hold multiple experiences, that can nurture the kind of trust that allows for truth-telling, and practices that foster repair and forgiveness. It means centering the voices and investing in leaders from communities that have been marginalized in our tradition. It requires being a living tradition that trusts the dawning future more. So how do we meet this moment? Who are we called to be? How is love calling us? Let me say it plainly. We are called to anti-racist work. We are called to it. We cannot be the people that we say we are. We cannot love the values that we say we love, the values of human dignity, justice, compassion, democracy, truth, peace, if we do not commit ourselves to dismantling systems of oppression within ourselves and our society. And this commitment is rooted in our theology. It is our theology that is the foundation of this calling and this work. A theology which affirms the truth that no one is outside the circle of love, and that liberation is only possible when everyone is free. Liminal times need moral and faithful communities to provide a clarion call for what is next. We have to fight and boldly proclaim what is next. A faith, a prophetic faith that proclaims the truth that makes us free. And when I hear those words, a truth that makes us free, I remember Universalist forefather Hosea Ballou, who understood that God's love was universal and that salvation is for everyone. And he believed that God's desire for humanity was happiness and joy. Ballou knew the reality of human suffering and knew the causes of it were as much rooted in humanity and our selfishness as is our capacity for compassion and care. He argued that theologies that imagined God as vengeful and punishing reinforced those ideas in our society, and that they separated us from God's love and from one another and from the goodness and joy that is possible and is an inherent gift. When I think about that truth that sets us free, I imagine Ballou's spiritual imagination. I also remember my own story of Unitarian Universalism. And the religious education teachers at the UU congregation where I grew up, who literally changed my life. In a time of turmoil, they created an environment of such joy, such love and care that it made me understand that something more was possible beyond my present realities. It gave me hope and showed me the life-saving power of joyful, loving community. And I know that I am not alone in having a story of how a UU congregation saved my life. I know so many young people, the ways that our RE community, that our curriculum like our Whole Lives Comprehensive Sexuality Curriculum, our coming of age programs, our youth conferences, the knowledge, affirmation, and community that these provide are life-saving. So if you were raised in this tradition and you have an experience like this, I want you to say, I am. Say, I was saved by this faith. Write that in the chat. Were you saved by this faith? And if you were a parent, a caregiver who knows that your congregation or your congregation's RE program made a difference in your children's lives or the life of your family, or in your own parenting, I want you to say, I am. I want you to write it in the chat, I am. I am part of that life-saving community. I was saved by this faith. My family was supported by this faith. Religious education is central to our communities. It is one of our greatest strengths. Our justice work is so well known, but our religious education work is one of our greatest strengths. I want to thank our religious educators and our RE teachers. I want to thank our ministers who are dedicated to religious education, to all of our leaders who fund strong, vital religious education. You know, it's not accidental that RE is such a strength. As UUs, we've always been committed to education, to learning, to cultivating truth and meaning in our lives and helping our young people do the same. In a liminal time when so much is unknown, I believe it is important to focus on what we do know. Right now, there is an urgent need among children and families. They continue to experience some of the worst impacts of this pandemic. We have a mental health crisis among our children. Children, youth, and families need support and love and care now more than ever. And this includes our leaders, our lay leaders, and our professionals, our religious professionals, who are also parents and caregivers. Our religious education ministries need support to lead the way in building inclusive communities of belonging for children of every identity, race, ability, and disability, gender identity, sexual orientation, neurodiversity, and economic background. Because it is in religious education that we so often remember that real change, deeply transformative change, begins in small ways through relationships of care, attention, and learning. This is core mission work. Our congregations are here for a reason, for life-saving, life-affirming religious community and justice-making ministry in the world. And mission is about bringing our values, our theology, and our care to the world's need. Now is the time to lean into mission and into what we know saves and affirms life. At the UUA, our core mission work is to equip our congregations for vital ministry, to train and support our leaders, both lay and professional, and to advance our UU values in the world. And this is core to everything we do. And this is why we are making crucial investments in work that we know is needed for the future. This includes increasing our investment in children, youth, and family ministry. It includes beginning work on a digital music resource for a multi-platform era. It includes developing a Mosaic hub, a central platform for multi-generational, age-appropriate resources for dismantling racism and oppression in our communities. It includes growing opportunities for lay leadership development and connection across our congregations, because we know our lay leaders need support and community and connection across congregations. It means increasing scholarships for those aspiring to UU ministry and religious professional leadership so that we have the diverse leaders that we need to serve the diversity and fullness of our communities. And yes, it means investing in UU The Vote 2022, strengthening our prophetic justice organizing, defending people's lives, and pushing back against fascism and authoritarianism. And we are able to say yes to this because you all say yes to your communities and to our larger faith. The annual program fund, the gifts that our congregations give, the financial support to the UUA, that is how we embody a covenant that creates a UUA that helps support all of our congregations in their times of need, in their times of growth, in their times of loss. We are here for each other as a covenant of religious communities, and you all have strengthened your giving to the UUA over the last few years, and it has allowed us to say yes to being stronger partners to you in this pandemic and in what comes next. And I thank you for your generosity, and I remind you that the most important way that you can make a difference in your community is by supporting your local congregation as generously as you are able. The future is uncertain and the challenges are many. This pandemic is not done with us, and the climate disasters are impacting every community across the globe. The rise of authoritarianism, fascism, and white Christian ethno-nationalism is a reality in our country and elsewhere. Unitarian Universalists have always been positioned to play crucial roles in the struggle for expanding freedom, equity, and democracy. And in those moments, when we have claimed the path of justice, of liberation, of solidarity, we have experienced the world shift. As Cornel West says, we punch above our fighting weight. We do. So I'll end where I began. We are in a liminal time, letting go of what has been. In that middle space in between, as we reach for what is next and create it together. Who will we be? How are we called? How is love calling us? What I witness in the midst of struggle and uncertainty is a fiery flame of vitality, this courage growing in us, this spiritual renewal and depth growing from our theological foundations, this practice of leaning into partnership and interdependence like never before. We are building a road together and singing songs that are both new but echo the songs of those who came before us, leaving a road for us to follow. For 5 years now, I have said, it is no time for a casual faith, and it is no time to go it alone. Now is the time to realize that we were made for this moment, that we are the people we have been waiting for. Now is the time to take more seriously the life-saving ministry of our religious communities and our religious education ministries, to invest boldly and generously in our own congregations as a strong foundation for people to heal, to grow, and to resist. To lean into covenant and collaboration across our congregations to help all of our congregations thrive, to practice deeper solidarity and partnership with directly impacted communities for liberation, and to create more joy. To create more joy and celebration, knowing that this is a source of power, of resilience, and of the imagination that we all need, that our world needs. We were meant for joy. We were meant for joy, and joy feels like love, and it moves like freedom. We were made for this moment. We are the people we have been waiting for. May we be the people that we are called to be.
So I invite you now to turn to our closing hymn, number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere. And because of the time, I think we'll do the first and the fourth verse. So I invite you to rise in body or spirit. Invite Claudia to extinguish our chalice as I share with you the closing words by Jakaran Olea Yoya, UU seminarian and member of the UUA Board of Trustees. As we close today, I invite everyone to pause for just a moment. Take in the energy in the room that we're in. Take in all of those beautiful spirits who have chosen to be in community with you. We are in a time of change and hope, and each moment we are together, we generate more for the benefit of all of us. Being in this community, showing up to do hard work over and over again, we have an opportunity to center love and connect more deeply to spirit, the best of ourselves. So just take in all of this good for just one moment and shut out all of the distraction. The work of a faith community saves lives and inspires love. Go now in the spirit of life-saving love. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.